call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. We have Council Member Olson absent this evening. Otherwise, all other council members are present. And we had an agenda that was presented to us. Staff, do we have any changes to the agenda as presented?
We have those items removed, 7C and D.
Okay. We'll remove action item 7C and D from the agenda. Is there any other additions or changes to the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda with those changes?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Warren. Call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4 in favor, none against. We have our minutes from our February 19th regular meeting. Is there any corrections or changes to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So move.
Motion by Warren. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave. Any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 4 in favor, none against. And I'm going to slow down or we're going to be done before we even get started. We've got very little on our agenda this evening, so.
The quicker we get out of here, the less money we spend. So.
All right. At this time is our public open forum. Is there anybody here who wishes to address the council? Anybody wish to address the council? Seeing none, then we'll move into our reports and presentations as we have no public hearings this evening. Our EDA report.
Okay, the EDA met actually earlier today in their regular session, and the majority of the meeting was to discuss with Bob Swanberg. He is from the Stearns County HRA, and they're the ones that had administered our small cities grant that we received, where most of the funds were actually spent in 2006 and 2007. This is the grant that went out to the community for rental rehab, commercial, and residential, where it was functions as part of its grant, part of its low-interest loan, etc. And he was here to review with us some turn-back funds that have been paid back to the fund, and to get the EDA's recommendation on whether, you know, that money should be reloaned out or if we should use it for a match, because we want to go through another grant application that opens up this fall. And so we're looking at how we should structure that best if we move forward with that, and then also talked about most of the projects now that are in there, once they hit their 7th year, then the grant, it's a loan, but after you've stayed in the house for 10 years, you don't have to pay it back. So after 7 years, it starts going like 20%, then 40%, then 80%. So you don't, if you were to sell it in like the 8th or 9th year, you would not have to pay 100% back. And after 10 years, it becomes a total grant. So we talked about that, the administration of it, so the EDA can start getting an idea of what it takes to administer that type of a grant, because the HRA is no longer able to do that if we go on another grant round. So that, like I said, that was the majority of the meeting that we had today. We did talk about some future projects and some other grant opportunities that we have with Minnesota DEED, or DTED, which it used to be called. And we were going to recommend a city council meeting, joint meeting, but we're not to the point of doing that yet, and so that's why that was removed from the agenda tonight. Does anybody have questions about the EDA meeting?
Any questions? No? Thank you, Vicki. We want to go into the Finance Committee report as well, please.
The Finance Committee met on Friday, February 28th, and the gist of their Finance Committee report was really to center around any proposed funding allocation for the splash pad, and because that's an agenda item under 7, I think maybe we can just discuss that more in full at that time, than do it twice, I guess, if that's okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Any questions in regards to the Finance Committee report? All right, thank you. Well, then we'll move into our action items. Action item 7A, appoint member to Planning Commission.
As you know, we did have a vacancy remaining on the Planning Commission we have not been able to fill, and we did talk to Marty Sunderman, and he had served for many, many years on the Planning Commission, and he has agreed to come back for the balance of 2014. We do have a bigger project coming up, and I think it would be beneficial for us to have his knowledge and experience on the Planning Commission. So we're asking that the City Council appoint Marty Sunderman for this term, which would normally be a 3-year term, but to appoint him for 1 year to December 31st, 2014, and then that would be opened back up for the balance of the 2 years remaining.
Any questions? Is there a motion to appoint Marty Sunderman to the Planning Commission for a 1-year term effective January 1st of 2014 and expiring December 31st of 2014?
So moved.
Motion by Keith, seconded by Warren.
Yep.
Any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 4 in favor, none against. Moving on to 7B, approved sale of tax forfeited property. Vicki?
We do have a property in Sauk Center at 535 Birch Street South that has been forfeited to the state for failure to pay taxes. The county is asking that the city classify that as non-conservation, which the county has already done, which really just means we're not going to conserve it for public use, that we're going to allow it to go out for sale. And so they're requesting that the city council as well agree that it should be scheduled for sale, and then they will offer it at an upcoming public auction. So what we're asking tonight is to approve the sale of the tax forfeited property.
All right. Any questions? Is there a motion to approve the sale of the tax forfeited property as noted?
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Warren. Is there any discussion? This is common on all the tax forfeitures that we go through this process. So,
Yes.
no discussion. I will call the motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 4 in favor, none against. All right, that takes us down to E, as 7C and D we removed from our agenda this evening. So action item 7E is fund allocation, Park Board. Vicki?
Well, as you know, the Park Board has been working with its committee, which is the Splash Pad Committee, on the development of the multipurpose park. And they are now at the point where the council would need to consider making a more formal fund allocation for the dollars. And then that would allow the board and its committee to continue with grants which require this match. The Finance Committee did meet on that, like I said, on February 28th, and what came out of that committee, and Brad, feel free to add here as I go through it, but the Finance Committee recommends that the Park Board, they would take the lead on the development of the supporting elements of the multipurpose park, these things outside of the splash pad, these items such as the irrigation, trees, shelter, that type of thing, and we're already working on the irrigation and the trail. And that would be funded through allocations of the park dedication and campground profits with the potential of funding from other sources at the council's discretion. And then the Splash Pad Committee to continue with its fundraising campaign for the Splash Pad component, with the council proposing a match dollar for dollar up to $50,000. So as the committee is out fundraising, for every dollar they raise, that the city would then match $1 to that. So then, of course, each element of the park as it comes forward would come to the council for approval as like we have out now, the ones that are out for bid. So what we're asking tonight on the council level is that they would approve the funding allocations for the multipurpose park improvements through a combination of park dedication funds and campground profits for the supporting elements, and approve a match dollar for dollar up to $50,000 for the splash pad component. And Brad, feel free to add to that.
Just a couple comments. We did spend a significant amount of time, the Finance Committee did, on this. And as we all have been involved in not only the splash pad, but also the entire park plan for the multipurpose park up there in that facility, we believe that we should continue with the project. And we also believe that we understand that the splash pad and the splash pad committee has put in a lot of work, and we know there's a lot of interest in moving that portion of it, but we also know you can't do that without also working through on the shelter and the building and the things that go along with it. As an example, you can't put in a pad without having the water and the utilities and the building there to house all the pumps. And so a lot of thoughts that we put into this was, although it's going to go hand in hand, and we will bring all of not only will the committee, splash pad committee, but the council will see each aspect of this multi-purpose park as it comes together to the council for approval. So whether it's the building, and we already approved the sprinklers and the irrigation system, the trail, I believe the building we're going to get quotes on, shelter, those types of things. So more to come as it continues to move forward. We think we've already secured some grants for the facility, I believe. So they're continuing on that side of it as well. But we all know that there's a certain amount of interest into moving it forward just to help bring more to the campground, as our campground has a lot of amenities, but one thing it doesn't have is, even though we have a lake, it doesn't have a water feature. And it's been one of the things that's been, as Warren knows, has traveled to a lot of campgrounds, has seen, has been very attractive to campers. So we're very excited about the fact to move it forward and to also see potential more revenues coming in from the campground. And we will be going back to the park board to see, certainly at the end of this year, if we should be revisiting the campground fees and things to help offset some of those costs as we go into 2015. But so it's been a great effort by the committee. I think we've all recognized that over the last almost year, and now I think it's the city's part is going to get involved as well. We are committing up to $50,000 for just the splash pad portion of it, and the rest of that will come by raising funds as well as other outside resources, whether it's grants, state or federal funding. So, any questions?
What's the source of the $50,000?
Vicki?
Well, we talked about whether the city council wanted to look at some of the other revenue streams that the city has. They stopped short of saying that it would have any property tax component, because that's always been something that we've tried not to do a whole lot of. I mean, we want to make sure that this is going to be something that's not going to cost the general residents. And so they talked about some interest allocations that we had from the hospital. I'm trying to think of there was like 3 other revenue streams that we had. Of course, we had the park dedication, we had the campground, and then we have some TIF districts that are decertifying that those dollars need to be allocated. So there's different places that, the city council is going to be having some discussions on some of these different kinds of dollars of how they can allocate them. And that is why this committee didn't want to go too far to allocate funds, because they wanted to involve the whole council in. There may be multiple other things within the city that may merit those dollars. So that's why they put a kind of a $50,000 cap on it.
So we felt that the $50,000 could come out of park dedication funds, campground profits to support that portion of it, and any additional funding that's going to come will come from either unallocated funds that we allocate at year end, or other things within either the campground park board budget or within any other budget that the city feels those funds won't be allocated or used to offset those costs.
Okay.
So we did not want to specify.
So at this point, we don't know where that money's coming from, actually. We're going to pony up and say $50,000, but we don't actually know where it's coming from.
They did not set a specific fund that it would be paid from, because that discussion needs to happen at, like, the finance committee needs to talk about any unallocated dollars and how we can allocate those. But they do want to commit that we will allocate $50,000 toward this. Which specific funds it came out of, they did not say.
We will find the money someplace, all right.
We feel we have multiple sources of revenues that are unallocated that we could allocate toward this, but we did not want to until the finance committee actually specifies where the dedicated funds should go. Should it go to parks? Should it go to streets? Should it go to other areas? One of those specific areas, as Vicki mentioned, was the interest bearing from the hospital transaction was one of the things that is unallocated, which I think we're all familiar with.
That amount is significantly more than $50,000, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
Nope.
Hearing no questions, is there action of the council? Is there a motion to approve the funding allocation for the multi-purpose park improvements through a combination of park dedication funds and campground profits for supporting elements, and approve a match dollar for dollar up to $50,000 for the splash pad component.
So moved.
Motion by Dave, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. Is there any discussion? And Vicki, a couple of more things as we discuss this, and before I call the motion. I know the splash pad committee, you will be continuing to update the council on a monthly basis as far as the progress of goes of the raising of the funds, as well as the allocation and where we're looking at moving. The finance committee will be meeting again, hopefully here at the end of March is our goal, to look deeper into the unallocated dollars to bring that back to the council as well. So,
Well, with the understanding that we're not going to be using property taxes for it, great.
that's exactly right. All right, any other discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 4 in favor. and yes. Thank you. Moving on, we have no unfinished business, when we really have no new business. So we'll go right into our consent agenda. We have 3 things on our consent agenda. Our list of checks, we have a resolution, and we also have a extension of a premise permit for June 14th. So with that, I'll outline the consent agenda. We got a schedule of claims for a total of unpaid claims of $91,045.85, paid claims of $1,530.19, for a total of $92,576.04. We also had contributions. We had two contributions this month. We had the men's card playing group of $213.21. We will for the senior center, and then we also had an anonymous donator of $45 to the ambulance. I thank those folks and those organizations for their donations. We also have a request from Lori Ron, doing business as Palace Bar and Grill, for a temporary extension of premise permit for a dance on June 14th, 2014. Any questions on the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Motion by Warren, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave. Any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 4 in favor, none against. We just have 2 things for informational items this evening. We have in your packet the 2013 annual bridge inspection. They've been doing this since 1996. According to Minnesota law, the bridges must meet a certain criteria and may be inspected on a biannual basis. That is being done, and we will receive annual inspection report for those bridges when it's completed. And the following deficiencies, there were no deficiencies found on the bridge, which is L2476. So you have that inspection that was attached in your packet. And then the last thing on the informational items is the final tax rate. Ricky, do you want to outline that, please?
Sure. We had our final tax rate for the city. When we adopt our preliminary budget in September every year, then they send us a preliminary tax rate. And then we can change that in December, and if we levy the same, our tax rate stays the same as in September. But what we took action after that was we decertified one of our TIF districts, and by allowing that tax base to go back in the TIF district, it reduced our rate. So our rate for pay taxes in 2014 is actually 3.3% lower than it was in 2013. So that's that's good news, I guess. It was going to be 1.7 less because of some tax base increases, but this further increased our base by adding existing property back into the calculation. So information for the city council to know, and we will be decertifying more districts this year in 2014, so you should see another significant decrease for 2015. So that's right around the corner.
Very good. Thank you, Vicki. You can explain that so much better than me. Hearing that, is there anybody that has any other informational items? Okay. I have, and we have nothing else on our agenda for this evening. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Do we have to drag it out for the students that are in the audience?
No, maybe they'll
This is
stick
probably
around a
only a
little while
half credit
afterwards.
for,
We can talk.
Question and answer period after?
Yeah, there you go.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Warren, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Keith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.